retirement systems in America that there might be a commission to study what you guys have done since 1952 fairly brilliantly, in my opinion. And that's made recommendations to the legislature year in and year out as to what needs to be done to keep our system wholesome, safe, sound, and progressive through the ages.
No, sir, I was not consulted.
Okay. Well, so then it's not your problem. It's our problem. Is it true that basically no matter what this commission recommends, the 14 people sitting around this table and the 160 other members of the legislature will ultimately have to check off on what they do?
That is correct.
Okay. So can you think of any sound reason why it would have been commissioned other than to just spread ungodly fear among some of the most beloved citizens of this state who, because this legislature basically absconded on their responsibilities to pay them, they stayed in public service because they knew at the end of that career there was a very healthy state employees retirement system waiting for them.
I don't really think you want me to comment on that.
I want to join my colleague George Flags in saying they can study all the hell they want to, but I'm not going to read it. If the board does not recommend it, Holland's not going to vote for it, period. And I will help lead the effort to destroy any efforts on this hockey puck business of messing with retirees and future retirees' lives.
Representative Watson.
Thank you, Governor. Could you go over, as far as your involvement or your knowledge, how this commission came into existence?
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to give you what little I know, and that is I know that there was two things happened. One, the governor's appointee to the PERS board requested that the PERS board support the creation of an independent study commission at a committee meeting and made a motion to that. The motion failed. The Senate passed a concurrent resolution that asked for the creation of an independent study commission. That resolution died. I can tell you that in conjunction with the change that was passed in retirement eligibility from 25 to 30 years in the 2010 legislative session that was to be effective July the 1st, 2011, the legislature asked the PERS board to look at the whole issue of sustainability and bring recommendations to the legislature in 2011. The PERS board, in conjunction with our consulting actuary, Kavanaugh McDonald, held a number of work sessions over the summer and fall of 2010 to accomplish just that. As a result, the recommendation was made to the legislature to reduce benefits slightly in conjunction with the change in retirement eligibility. The formula increase from 2 to 2.5% was put off from 25 to 30 years. The recommendation was to delay the COLA from compounding at age 55 to age 60, and retirement eligibility for those who retired with less than 30 years or were not age 65 would have an actuarial reduction. Those recommendations were made to the legislature and were passed. I can tell you that the board deliberated for a long time about a number of changes related to all of that and looked at the entire benefit formula, and the decision was made based on the fact that the employee now pays 9% in contributions, not to recommend any further changes. That relates to the whole overall normal cost of funding a plan, and you have, as I said, a sheet on that. The normal cost is the cost associated with providing retirement benefits for the employees who are providing services today. So in other words, how much it costs to provide a benefit in conjunction with the salary that you're paying on an annual basis. And the normal cost today is a little over 11%. So what that means is that today's employees with a 9% contribution rate are paying the majority of the financing needed to fund their retirement benefit from a long-term perspective. Given that, the board felt that it was not fair to decrease the benefits further, because you would then in essence have today, or the new employees, paying for almost 100% of their benefit. And you've got two pieces to a contribution rate, and part is the normal cost and part is the unfunded accrued liability cost. As I said, the normal cost is the cost associated with the annual cost associated with providing benefits from day to day, from year to year. The unfunded accrued liability cost is a part of plan design and occurs as a result of actuarial experience being different from projected. For example, market losses of a negative 19.4% versus an 8% assumed rate, such as we had in 2009. However, the biggest cost associated with what the Mississippi PERS is facing today has to do with the increases that were put in place in 1999 and the fact that they were done in a retroactive manner without a funding mechanism in place. At that point in time, I had about 20 years of service, and my 20 years went from being valued at about 37.5% to being valued at 40%, and neither I nor my employer paid any contributions into PERS to fund those benefits over that 20-year period that I worked.
The recommendations that you earlier mentioned for changes in the system, I take it that those recommendations were made after consultation with your staff and the various experts that you all hired in PERS.
That is correct.
And you feel at this particular point that those are the only changes that the legislature should consider in the retirement system in the state?
Mr. Chairman, what I can say is that the benefits for new hires are being funded. The benefits for current and existing members hired before July 1st of 2011, and those who are already retired and those of us who have been around a long time, there's a piece of our benefits that were funded by extending the time needed to pay for it. And that's really kind of what's caught us. And in order to address any funding issues and have any impact, the only option would be to change benefits for current members and or retirees, and or just to allow the changes that have already been put in place to take a little more time and work through and get us back headed in the right direction.
Do you know if PERS office has received and is receiving an increased number of phone calls, inquiries, emails, or any type of contact as a result of this commission that's been created?
I think we have received some, but I would say that you, as members of the legislature, have probably received many more than we have. We have tried to allay the fears of our members by putting factual information on the website and reinforcing the fact that this is a study commission, that PERS is transparent, that studying PERS is not necessarily a negative. It's, whatever the outcomes are, the legislature has the authority, and only the legislature, to change those benefits. And it will be, once that's made, we'll see how that comes out.
Thank you very much.
And Chairman String, I have passed out, I just received a few moments ago, and I've just read over during this meeting, if y'all have, Mayor Slogel forwarded a letter to me, so I've handed it out to the committee, and I think the media may have it, and you may read over it. I would say if we have a meeting in the near future, perhaps Mayor Slogel and the committee may come to answer any questions you may have about that. I'll try to respond, but it's his letter to me, and so I can either defend it at this time or criticize it, so I'll have time to review it. I'm going to we'll come back to you. I've got about 4 or 5 more. Chairman String.
Thank you, Governor. The way I feel about, the 13th check in the retirement system, we've never been able to pay our teachers, state employees enough money. And I just feel like this is part of their salary that they put into service to the state of Mississippi. And I tell you, we have the average pay for state employees is around $34,000, and 62% are below of that $34,000 below that. And so we didn't have a state retirement for some of these, especially lower paid employees. They would be on Medicaid, and we would pay them. But it's just, it gives them a better lifestyle to have this retirement when they do retire, 65, whatever. You talked about the 9% that the employees pay. Is this the highest in the nation, or is this close to the highest in the nation?
For a system that is covered by Social Security, and there are some states whose public employees are not covered by Social Security, for example, Ohio, Louisiana, the teachers in California are not covered, most public employees in Nevada are not covered by Social Security, so their benefits generally are a little bit higher, and the contribution rates are a little bit higher in recognition of the fact that they don't pay into Social Security. But for a state whose employees who do participate in Social Security and have to pay that fringe benefit rate also, the 9% is one of the highest in the nation.
I think I read somewhere that 10 states changed benefits on current retirees or current employees.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's somewhere around there that they have 7 plans, I think it is, in 3 states changed the cost of living adjustment for current members and retirees. As in South Dakota, Minnesota, and Colorado. In Minnesota, in the cases of Minnesota and Colorado, both have language in the statute that says something to the effect that if there's a fiscal sustainability issue, then benefits may be changed. And in fact, in Colorado, they were projected to actually run out of money to pay benefits in the year 2029. So they changed a number of things, including the cost of living adjustment associated with current members and retirees. In Minnesota and in Colorado, summary judgment was just given down in the last month or 6 weeks that said that they could change those benefits for current members and retirees. Now in Minnesota, no challenge or appeal was filed, so that law will stand. In Colorado, an appeal has been filed, so that court case will continue. North Dakota, they haven't had any action on their case. I can tell you in Florida, which was a non-contributory retirement plan, meaning that employees did not contribute. There was a recent law, they increased the contribution rate to 3% for employees. There has been a lawsuit challenging that has been filed.
Talking about the 13th check, You know, some people think when you retire, you get the 13th check the first year. Say if you retire June the 30th compared to December the 31st.
Well, the statute says that you have to be retired one full fiscal year before you can receive the cost of living adjustment, and if you receive it in a lump sum, you receive it in December of the following, at the end of the following fiscal year. If
Just
not,
give an example, give the dates.
for example, if somebody retires in June 30 of 2011, they would receive a cost of living adjustment in December of 2012. If somebody retires in, let's just say, July of 2011, they would not receive a cost of living adjustment until December of 2013.
Pretty good wait.
Yes, sir.
So you really mess up if you just retire a day late past June 30th.
It adds 6 months to when you, well, actually it adds a year to when you would receive your retirement check, your cost of living adjustment.
Thank you.
Representative Pratt.
Thank you, Governor.
Don't run close.
Pat, one thing we've discovered and haven't been able to cure are the contract employees who receive, for the most part, higher salaries and work side by side with our state employees who are receiving a lesser salary. To say that is demoralizing, certainly saying something. If, in fact, these agency heads, Will and Blake, or whomever agency heads would come to the legislature and request time-limited PERS instead of contract employees at these gigantic salaries, wouldn't those time-limited PERS for 6 months, a year, pay into the retirement system?
Chairman,
What is the key to pay into the retirement system for employment?
well, if these individuals that are being hired as contract workers are retirees, they currently now, the employer will have to pay the employer contribution.
We're talking, other than the shortfall in error that you corrected last year and the legislature passed, I'm talking about these consultants that come in and receive these high salaries, some who receive $240 an hour after Katrina in federal money, working side by side with state employees who were making, as you would know, much less. Are these people paying into the retirement system?
I believe what you're referring to are the independent contractors, which
Any type of person contracted other than a PIN individual.
these are individuals who the agency contracts with as, quote, an independent contractor. We look at those individuals, we look at the contracts, and based on the facts that are presented to us, determine whether or not those are, in fact, true independent contractors, or if they are employees. And if they are employees, then they are subject to the reemployment rules. I can tell you that there are a lot of attorneys and a lot of agencies out there, and a lot of our covered employers, and you can write a contract pretty much so that if you're just reviewing that contract, it will appear on the face that it is an independent contractor. PERS has no way to audit or ensure that the agency is actually contracting with an independent contractor and not just supplementing staff through an independent contractor.
Well, this committee, I've done this committee for 12 years, have tried repeatedly to get a handle on contract employees. People who, is there anything you could recommend, legislation you could recommend that would help you clarify if in fact that individual, had they come in and justified the necessity with a PIN, it in fact would be scrutinized by this committee or by other agencies? Do we have anything we can do to recover some of this money, huge amounts of money that the taxpayer dollars are being paid to individuals who are not paying into the state retirement system in lieu of a state employee job?
We have looked at this issue continually because it is an issue. But we have not been able to come up with anything in a way to hold the employers accountable because they're really the ones that should have the responsibility for it.
It's supposed to be us.
You're exactly right.
In the words of Pogo, it's very hard. Charlton Heston said it'd be very hard to get the gun out of his hand, living or dead. That's how it would be if they come after state retirees.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Governor. I'll try to be relatively brief. How long have you been with the agency?
I started in August 1980.
1990, so you've been there 31 years.
Yes, sir.
As director, do you have any concern or any doubts about the ability or the willingness of your board to take action? You talked about sustainability. Take whatever actions are necessary to recommend whatever actions are necessary in the legislature to guarantee the sustainability of the current PERS system.
No, sir.
Thank you. 13th check. It's 3%, right, by statute.
Yes, sir.
If I told you that the average rate of inflation over the last 86 years in the United States was 3.1%, which it is, I'll represent to you, would you then say that a 3% cost of living adjustment annually would be necessary to maintain the purchasing power of retirement checks for state employees or government employees in the system?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about a conversion to a defined contribution plan, which in the private sector would be a 401k plan, a similar plan, in the government sector would be a 403b plan. If we converted, if we took all new employees and set up a defined contribution plan and just maintain the existing plan for current employees, what would be the effect on the contributions that would be necessary, and in particular the state budget, to maintain the current benefits for current employees? What would happen?
The contribution rate as a percentage of payroll would increase.
Increase substantially?
Substantially, because you would have a declining payroll. The benefits are funded, and that's what the contribution rate represents, a percentage of payroll. And if you close the payroll to new members, the actuary assumes that payroll is going to continue to grow, and it's an open plan, and over the next 30 years, you will be financing this over that. If you close that, then the payroll decreases, so the contribution rate as a percent of payroll increases. 2, you have a shorter time to finance those benefits.
So the accrued liability will still have to be paid off, and it had to be paid off with fewer participants contributing to the plan.
That is
It wouldn't go away overnight. So in fact, the state budget would be negatively impacted, probably in a substantial way. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Thank you.
Senator Kirby.
Thank you, Governor. Well, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. First off, thank you and all your employees and your board for doing a good job. We all know you do a good job, and we appreciate that. I guess what I want to try to do, if I can here today, because I am a non-voting member along with Representative Sullivan on that study committee, I want to end the political hype and the political myth that people keep talking about, this damn 13th check. I want to tell you that the chairman, the last meeting we had, in which everyone was invited, started the meeting simply by saying that we have no intentions of changing anything about the 13th check. Period. He said anyone says anything different than that is wrong. So, I mean, that was said in the meeting. Now, he did say in his letter, if you read it, that let's see, what did he say? Would be surprised if any study commission made any recommendations about receiving the COLA as a lump sum payment. Well, that's not really saying 13th check. He's saying lump sum payment. You know, a lot of people now, tell me if I'm wrong, please, a lot of people now get monthly, not in a lump sum. Maybe that would be a change. I don't know. I don't know that. I do know that we have a consulting company that we're their 39th state to do. And I'm glad we have them. What's wrong with looking at what we have? I don't see any problem with that. Matter of fact, he made the statement in the meeting, we hope we have no recommendations. That's what he said several times. We hope we have no recommendations. That would be great. That means everything's perfect. We all know that anything can be improved regardless of what it is. But I wish someone 30 years ago or more had looked at our Social Security a little bit better than what's been looked at in Washington. So anyway, I don't have any problems with the study committee. I think they're not going to do anything. I can tell you, we both have talked to every member on the committee. They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're trying to help state employees. What's the problem? I don't understand, other than maybe you just don't want to be talking about it, or maybe people do want to talk about it and make it political hype. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate what the governor's done. I'm happy that he has some really good members on there, and I look forward to seeing the recommendation. Now, recommendations, that's all it is. As we all know, the legislature and your board make the decisions, not a study committee. What's wrong with having a study committee? I'm a Baptist. We have a lot of study committees. I don't see the problem with it. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
It's all about saving souls. Senator Davis.
Thank you, Governor. Pat, you referenced in your remarks the possibility, if not probability, of having to increase going from 12.93 up an amount. You didn't reference how much. At some point during this past session, well, between now and the last budget meeting last fall, I had in my mind that it was reported it could be as high as 4%. Is that accurate?
That probably is based on prior projections. It could go up not that much in 1 year.
No, I'm sorry. That was, I think you at the time you said that to me, you referenced that would be over either a 4 or 5 year period.
Right. That sounds accurate. No, it's not. Okay. And that's I'll refer you to page 35 in the PERS facts and figure booklet. And you'll note that it's projected to go from the 12.93, which it will be January the 1st, to a high of 14.35%. So basically a little less than 1.5% over the next 2 years. Now, if we have substantial market gains over the next year, that could offset that to some degree. Conversely, if we have market losses, that could put pressure to increase it even further.
And is it?
This is an estimate and a projection at a point in time, and what I will say about this is this is not based on the actuarial numbers because that has not been completed yet. We won't have those until October. So this is just a projected estimate. And we'll have this number will be updated once we get the final actuarial report in October.
Okay, moving it under this graph here before me, moving it from 12.93 to 14.35%. That difference, would there be a recommendation whether it would come from the employer or the employee? Or would it just be my assumption to take it from the employer's portion?
The recommendation, I feel certain, coming from the board, would be that it would come from the employer, as I referenced before, with the 9% contribution rate. The employee today is funding their benefit. And the reason for the unfunded accrued liability has to do more with employees who are members who are already retired or those of us who are eligible to retire today. So that's really a responsibility of the employer, not the employee today.
Okay. And how much, do you have an amount as to how much that would cost? Using today's dollars,
you mean overall to the entire payroll or to the state budget?
The state budget.
To the state budget, I don't. I'd really be looking to Debbie to kind of help me with that number, Debbie Saxon. But I want to say...
We have some indication, 26, Debbie, is that right? 26.362 million. For 13. So if we're determining the cost